As our closer look continues with youth engagement and the church, it is my pleasure to welcome Mary Bielski. Mary is a very popular Catholic speaker and presenter with a personal story of faith, struggle, and rededication that has impacted young people around the country. She is also the founder of All For Him Ministries. Welcome to this special edition of KNXT Closer Look. Let's dive right into this.
All right.
What is All For Him Ministries? What do you mean by All For Him?
Well, initially it's just a great name, but All For Him is really coming out of my own story. So I grew up Catholic, and the reason why I'm so drawn, obviously because I am Catholic in the fullness of the faith, but specifically for youth and young adults, is that I grew up in the church and kind of lived my life in the gray. I did this college life where you had one foot in the party scene and one foot in normal life, and I struggled as an adolescent with a lot of insecurity and feeling unsure of myself. And when I encountered the real presence of Jesus, that he's real and that he's alive, I had a huge conversion in my college experience, and it was God calling me not just to give one foot or my Sundays or occasional prayers, but to give all to him, to give this call of total surrender, total life gift back, because he's given all of himself to us. And so the All For Him is really just a reminder in my own heart as I journey that we have a God who is eminently profound and powerful in his gift of love, of giving all, and he asks for that in return.
That not only are we made in his image, right, as a universal call to love, but as a male and female, we are called to love in a distinct and beautiful way. And if we don't get this, right, this is where the crux of the cultural battle is happening. Right here in our sexual identity, right here is who we are as male and female. And the beauty of our church, I grew up thinking that the church was lame, old-fashioned, had no truth, and when God encountered my heart, when I experienced the power of a living God who called me by name and the beauty of a church that's alive and can change people's lives, man, nothing compared to that.
You said you had a deep conversion in your college years. Do you believe that conversion is needed for everyone?
Absolutely. I mean, so I was baptized, so you would say that the initial grace was there. I grew up in a family that had a strong roots in the Catholic faith. But for me, there comes a point, and this is with our young people who have maybe been catechized but not evangelized, that there comes a point in everyone's life where they have to encounter the real presence of Jesus Christ. And there has to be a giving of our will. You know, I know our Protestant brothers and sisters call that, like, have you given your life to the Lord and Savior? And so that framework is not the same that I'm talking about. I mean, I believe in the sacramental life of baptism and the church's teaching, but there has to be a point in our journey where we respond. And that, for me, was a reawakening of my faith, a deepening of what had already happened in the sacramental life of the church. But I do believe that what we're seeing a lot as I go out to young people are people that have been catechized or have been gone through the system but haven't been evangelized and causing the heart to turn, if that makes any sense.
You mentioned an encounter with the church or with Jesus. Do you believe there's a difference, and if so, what are the differences between encountering Jesus and having a relationship with Jesus?
Right. Well, encounter is the initial step. And so I think the encounter is just like when Christ came amongst the woman at the well, or Christ came to Bartimaeus. It was a moment of encounter. Or even the rich young man. There was a moment of encounter, but the rich young man left sad. So the encounter is needed to encounter the real person of Jesus Christ, but the relationship is our response, right? So it says in the Catechism that our thirst is Christ's thirst for us first in prayer. So he's already thirsting and trying to encounter our hearts and encountering our hearts. And so it's about us being receptive to that encounter and then surrendering and walking with him.
You gave us a definition for living all for God. Giving your all to anything is difficult. Many have issues finding how to do that. But number one, they're split in so many different ways. Not just a busybody.
Right.
Going in many different ways. How do you give yourself to God when you're studying for your master's, right?
Right.
You're giving talks. I'm sure you're a busy person. How do you find the time to give yourself all to God?
Right. Well, I sometimes fail, but in general, we give our time to that which we value the most. So most of us say that we don't have time, and yet we surf the internet or we watch television. And so for me, it's really about, as you grow in the spiritual life, and I talk to young adults about this too, is that there comes a point where, St. Paul talks about feeding us with milk and we need real meat. And so as we grow deeper in our spiritual life, making the time is really carving it out. As I try to give God my first fruits of my day, and so when I wake up, trying to give Him that time in the morning, and also praying throughout my day, and just making it an intentional part of my relationship that He is really my breath in my life. So I don't really know if there's a secret answer except for putting it in my schedule and my iPhone and asking for Him to help me in this, because I struggle with that too. And some days there might be a day where I don't have the prayer life that I want. But in general, I try to make it a daily act of walking in that.
Especially in the youth, we see that challenge in keeping the faith alive in them. But there's some youth that are driving force of a youth group. Why do you think the view the youth has of the church could be boring or stagnant, not accepting? How can we change that view? And why is it that they have that view?
Right. Well, I think in my experience of the church too is that the beauty of our faith is that we're ritualistic, right? So there's a beautiful ritual experience in terms of the sacramental life of the church, the liturgy. And so I want to say this without saying that those are bad or wrong. I love that, and that's the beauty of our church. I think a lot of times young people don't know why we do what we do, don't know the meaning behind it, and a lot of them also don't have a personal encounter first. So I guess for me, that would be a little bit of a struggle. I grew up in a Catholic school where I wore an ugly plaid uniform, and I went through the motions just like a lot of Catholic people. But for I think the way we change that isn't necessarily changing. We don't need to change the beauty of our church. We have the fullness of the faith. What we need to change is, I believe, authentically living Catholics, lay people in the church, youth ministers, community life, where we start living as a community, as the body of Christ, that really shows the heart of a church that is alive. Yeah. And so when I start sharing that I curled my hair this morning and that I live a normal life, and as I was curling my hair, I was praying for my talk today, and as I'm doing these things, I live a life where Christ is already living throughout my day in the ordinary world. You start to see people who are alive and love with Jesus, who are integrated into the church.
Absolutely.
And so I think we need both. And so I think it begins with changing my own heart first. We can really easily point to the church, and I've done it I'm in seminary, so it's easy to sit in class and be pointing at all the issues of the church and the ritual and all these things, but it comes with my own heart changed, and then walking with people that their hearts would change, and then we witness authentic love. So.
What you're talking about going through the motions, and that happens, I think, to everybody. I know I've witnessed that, and I've gone through that, and many friends who are just maybe dry up a little bit. What's needed to break just going through the motion, just attending certain events, a retreat, a mass, attending a prayer group, and how do you get past that point and start living the faith? Right.
So this is the radical, I don't know, I want to say the radical shock of the Christian faith, is that a lot of it is up to us, and yet it's not up to us. And let me explain what I mean by that. It's total grace. And what I mean by that is not that we sit there and say, well, God, you need to fix my life and my heart. It's having the heart of, just like David, who had the heart for heart for God, to say, God, stir. This is my prayer. So for people watching right now, I hope they hear this. My prayer when I'm feeling dry, which Saint Ignatian talks about consolation and desolation. Dryness is a part of the spiritual walk. Is learning, this is why with young adults, learning how to lean in and pray differently, remembering when He was faithful, remembering the times where you have seen God's goodness, but also the prayer, stir my affections, God. Every morning when I'm dry, God, give me a taste for your love for me, doing things throughout your day on a very practical level that are going to stir you. Like for me, I love praise and worship music. I come from a charismatic background, so I love to bust out with a little bit of Matt Maher or whoever else is on the radio. For other people, it might be a walk on the beach. For other people, it might be great theological readings. Finding the way that God speaks to the heart he's unique to the individual, right? And so the church is beautiful in giving a whole history of the saints and the lives of the saints who have different spiritualities for us to draw deeper into the roots of Christ. But it's intentional, and a lot of times I sit in my butt in adoration, and I call it butt prayer, where I'm just sitting there, and God, stir my affections. Remind me, God, give me a taste of your love. And so my prayer, even when I'm dry, is asking for that.
And it's so easy to forget that, right?
Right.
In our culture, in our society, what we do within the church is very counterculture. And it's easy to forget the good things that we have in life.
Mm-hmm.
The Synod of Bishops is speaking upon the family and the many issues within the family. What do you see are some issues within the family and communicating with the youth?
Well, I think because of the fragmentedness of the family. So there's an issue right now that a lot of families right now are disjointed with divorce, step parents or things, and so there can be a part where you're having a single mom or issues within the family where you can feel like a disunit. I think the church is doing a great job of trying to acknowledge the different shapes of families and sizes. I think the other part of the challenges that we have is just the culture that we live in, with families that are not eating together, not eating dinner together, not having time together, that even very economically sound families, their investment is to get their kids into a good college, which was my parents, but a lot of times I had soccer practice and I wasn't home to have the intimacy. And so a lot of the family issues is just learning how to be a lot of the issues that I see in the church is really what John Paul the Great talked about, or I call him the Great, St. John Paul talked about with the theology of the body, is learning how to be, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be in relationship? And how do we do that in love, even in the family life? The family is the domestic church. And so when that crumbles, the church crumbles. So the church is right. And it's really about learning how to love each other. And it comes to that basics of meals, parenting, and walking through that. So we have a big job ahead of us, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for giving us your time and
Thank
joining
you.
us, and
This
I
has
hope
been great.
everything goes well in your ministries.
Thank you so much.
Overwhelmingly, the message I get from kids is, this is boring. It sounds horrible to say, but it just seems that there isn't enough being done for youth that speaks to their heart.